Hey, what's up guys, Roman here, MonsterGadgets, and welcome to episode number 28 of Tutorial Thursdays. I hope you're all having a wonderful day wherever you might be. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are a new viewer, please consider liking my video and subscribing to my channel. If you are a return viewer or subscriber, thank you so much for your support. I greatly appreciate it. So in today's tutorial, we'll be powering up Photoshop, and I'm going to be showing you guys how you can take an image and basically fine tune it to where you have a nice glossy finish on the face like you guys see on magazines, professional portraits, and things of that nature. We're not going to get too crazy with it because if you put too much on it, it makes it look fake, but enough to kind of hide some of those imperfections that you would see otherwise in your photos. So let's go ahead and jump into Adobe Photoshop after this intro. We are in Adobe Photoshop. I've got this image loaded here, and as you guys can see, it's a decent image, but we've got a little bit of imperfections that we want to get rid of. A lot of times I don't do this because I want to. I normally ask clients if they want that, the fine tuning, the feathering touch on their portraits or not. So always ask, so don't just automatically start, brushing people's faces with paint in Photoshop. It's always a good idea to ask if they want it to be retouched or not, and they want to get rid of some of the imperfections or not. So always ask your clients if they prefer that or not. Some people, very little people, deny it or don't want it. Most people are like, yeah, just touch it up just a little bit so I can get rid of some of my wrinkles or eye bags or whatever. But we've got this image here, and first thing I always do is I always use the patch tool to get rid of things that I see immediately. So for example, she's got a little bit of a pimple or something here. So what you do is you go over to your left, select the patch tool. Yours might be on something different, but hold it, and you can go ahead and go to the patch tool. Zoom in a little bit so you don't miss anything, or you don't want to select too much. You basically go around the object just like that. It'll give you the marching ants. Click and drag, and just like that, that's gone. So I would go through the whole image and get rid of any imperfections that I can see like that. And then once the visual things are done, so let's just get rid of this one, for example. Once the bigger ones are done, then you can go ahead and go into creating that glossy type of finish. And here's how you do that. So before you even do the patch tool, always duplicate the layers and work on that. Don't work on the original one. So right click and go to duplicate. It's going to give you this. You can call it whatever you want. We'll just leave it as background copy, hit OK. And it's going to basically duplicate that layer for us. So from here, you can do a couple of things. Make sure you got your background copy selected. You can go to Image and go to Adjustments and go to Invert, or you can hit Command and I, and it's going to give you this scary looking, monstrous type of effect on your image. Don't get scared. Just be prepared for it. Don't freak out. It'll get better. I promise. So from here, we want to, once you've got it inverted, where you see normal here, go ahead and click on that. And we're going to click on linear light. And from here, once you've got linear light selected, we're going to go ahead and go into layer. We're going to go into filter. We're going to go to other, and we're going to go to high pass. So in high pass, this should be anywhere between, I would say, 22 to 24. I personally like to leave it at 24, so we'll go ahead and leave it there and go and hit OK. And it's going to do its magic there. And then we're going to go back into filter, and we're going to go to blur, and we're going to go to Gaussian, whatever, Gaussian blur. Yeah, I like that, Gaussian blur. Okay, click on that. Here, as you guys can see, if I move this up or down, this is how much blurriness it's going to cause on the image. So this is really important because you don't want it to be too blurry where it's going to highlight, it's going to dissolve all the features on the face. And you don't want it to be too clear where it's not really doing anything that you intended for it to do. So for a good rule of thumb is anywhere between like 3 to maybe 5 or so is a decent amount. And don't worry, right now you guys can see it's basically blurring out the whole image. We're gonna select areas that we wanted to blur right now because we have not specified what area to cover. It's blurring out the whole image. But just pay attention to the face and some of the details. And I will leave it probably around 3.5, 3.6. Go ahead and hit OK, and right now it's still the full image, so we want to be able to select which areas we want this blur to take effect. So go ahead and hit hold down Control or Alt, and then come down here, and we're going to go ahead and create a layer mask. And you'll see this pop up where it's black, so it's inverted basically. So from here, we're gonna go ahead and select the paintbrush tool. The main thing you wanna make sure is that you've got white in the foreground. If it's not, just go ahead and click that small little arrow and it'll change the colors to white or black, but you wanna have the white in the front. And from here, once you've got the paintbrush selected, you can adjust the paintbrush size from here. So right now, 400 pixel, that looks pretty good. Based on the image size, you might wanna adjust that to be smaller or bigger, so go ahead and move it over. But we'll leave it around 400 or so. Let's see, yep. We'll leave it 396. And then go ahead and play around with it. So just hold it and start coloring in basically the areas that you want to kind of blur it out. Again, you don't want it to look too fake, but you want it to look kind of feathered out and smooth. So if it's too much, you can always come down here or come up here to where it says opacity. You can adjust opacity, you can adjust the flow of it and the smoothness. So let's go ahead and maybe turn that down just a little bit because I think it seems a bit harsh. Smoothness, so that should be okay. And as you start filling in, you'll start to notice that it looks a little feathered. So the thing you want to focus on here is making sure that things that are supposed to be sharp, that are in focus, for example, the eye, you want to leave it as sharp as possible. You don't want to hide details from that or her eyebrow or anything like that. So go ahead and basically color in the areas that you want to feather it out and you want it to be a little bit smoother. And you'll see kind of like in this background copy under the layer, you'll see things getting kind of painted. That's what you're actually painting. Don't go over the nostrils or anything like that where it's gonna hide the details. But again, enough to cover the skin to make it look more smooth. And then that looks somewhat decent. Obviously the eye, we want to fix that. So let's go ahead and adjust the size of the brush here. And maybe like around 200-300, yeah, that should be pretty good. Cover that area out. Get behind the eyebrow here. And cover some of the around the hair. So again, I'm doing this very quickly, but obviously if you are doing this for a client, you would take your time, you would work out the details and make it look really, really good. But as you guys can see, it's covered a lot of the imperfections. It's covered her skin quite a bit. It looks more professionally done. It looks much more smoother. But again, play around with it. Look at how much smoother you want. If this is too much of a hard look, if it looks too feathery, then go ahead and turn the opacity down, turn the flow down a little bit, and work around with it, play with it, and see what you like it to be. That's it. Hopefully that you guys found this to be helpful. If you did, make sure you give me a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.